I'm going to go ahead and show you one of the quests. This is Merlin's Apprentice. Obviously, you can make your own quests with the quest editor and the dialogue editor and piece that together. And this is just a concept here. So we're going to go ahead and talk to Merlin here. And he's going to talk to us. We can interact with directly on the interface, of course, or 1-2, which you should already know. I'm just going to go ahead and speed through this dialogue. You know, you really got to pester Merlin sometimes. Tell him a good story, and then he'll go ahead and make you an apprentice. Now, you can't eat the pie. You got to override your base instincts. Everyone knows that. He wants you to chop a magic tree and collect a branch from it. So you can go ahead and ask him about that. You can kind of ask him more things about this. But basically showing quest states, right? So the dialogue is no longer showing the original dialogue. You know, you're in another state here. So going ahead and just running where I need to go because I know where this tree's at. So we'll speed along here. All right, and once you're done with the quest, you can go ahead and see when you talk to Merlin, he acknowledges that you're now his apprentice. All right, quest complete. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show you Merlin's Apprentice in the quest editor on the web app here. You can, on your server instance, just go right to the tab where it shows the quests and just go to the editor here. Or you could import the file directly, or maybe if you're working on your own local server, that kind of thing. As well, you can always work directly from the JSON files or the Python dictionaries directly if you prefer that too. So I know people maybe want to do a lot of quests with LLMs, and you could probably easily feed those in, right? So showing the actual editor here, and then we'll show the dialogues which pair with those actual quests. And I want to show you the NPC registry because we're going to tag NPCs or put them by UID in that case as well, just to show how it all ties together here for you. Moving down here, first field is the quest documentation. This is an optional field. This, when you have server quests that are public and hosted here, you know, we can source that documentation for you through this. And that could be if, you know, a user's stuck, they can go check out that documentation. So that is an optional thing here. Carrying on through to quest flags. These are the actual flags during a quest you need met, and that they would be kind of flagged as you do a certain action or something's met during the quest, right? So usually something like this would be talking to an NPC. They're going to assign you a quest. But we can also do, you know, if there's a certain game action, you mine a certain ore from a rock at a specific location, or any location just by the rock ID, or an NPC, right, or a monster. If you kill a certain monster by a certain ID, or maybe you need to kill 5 by a certain ID, or kill a very specific spawn of that, that can all be set in these flags here, and we'll show you that. Right now, it just needs a friendly name because we'll be referencing it by that key, right? And so just something helpful for you. Users won't see this. Users will see what actually in this quest log here. So in this quest log, there's a paired entry automatically generated. It'll be an empty text box, and you want to fill that in from the user's perspective of them completing the quest, right? And so this is going to be visible to them in the game, in their quest log, and it'll show their current progress in the quest as completed steps, their current active in progress step, and then finally their next, like basically quest step that they need to do. And so this, like I said, you want to write it from their perspective. If for any reason you need an extra key, you know, we can pop that in here. But like I said, automatically generated as a pair, should be good to go. Next, we have quest rewards, right? You have quest reward points, reward items, reward skills. From there, we can just specify the various keys as you'd expect and grant that to the player. In the case of a player doesn't have inventory space, you know, we're checking these things. And so we could either interrupt the dialogue, maybe flag to send that item to the bank, or hit the ground with that item, just bam, on the spot. And then maybe send a chat box message to the user. We're not going to show that here, but that's within the capability. So Quest requirements. Certain quests, naturally you may want to block behind other quests completion, or maybe a skill requirement, a specific hidden item they have, like maybe they don't realize if they have a certain item in their inventory, an NPC will interact with them, or if they're wearing a specific item, maybe the NPC would interact a certain way and offer a quest, right? So those conditions can be specified here as well. Said it's within the capabilities. Okay, dialogue rules. Now, this is actually the priority operation for the quest engine as it processes basically those flag, like as you have these dialogue rules and what meets these flags, kind of, and which we'll show. Now, these last two text boxes are a little bit small, so bear with me here. Okay, priority. So basically, we go from highest priority down to lowest from quest engine, right? And that's the goal of the quest engine. Just think of it simple as that. Now, this could be any number, 100, could be 1,000, could be 10,000. And then the next number, that could be 99 instead of 100. Normally, when I do this, I leave room between the actual rules here, because when you're doing quests, you may add to it for different dialogue branches. And so if you leave yourself room between 40 and 50, if you're talking or add another NPC to dialogue, you can keep those near each other in IDs just as an organizational matter. And obviously leave yourself space so you don't have to buff the offset of each other rule here, right? All right, next field. This is the actual NPC UID or tag specified. So if I have Merlin the Wizard, I can specify him here. If you have multiple Merlin spawns, maybe you have one at his house, one in a different town, we can actually use multiple tag system, which we'll show. Or maybe if you have multiple NPCs you need specified on a quest. So say you have a cleric, all clerics are viable, you can just do a tag and it would work to multiple NPCs as opposed to an NPC UID, which would isolate to a specific NPC for that rule there. This next text field, this actually is the dialogue key it's referencing to this that we're associating. So Merlin's Apprentice 1. And as I said before, 100, it goes down as it processes. So this would be Merlin's Apprentice 2. This would be Merlin's Questions. It could be Merlin's Apprentice 3 if we so desire to name it that. That's your own naming convention. Bear with me until we get to that side. And just showing you the last field just so we can kind of move along. Obviously, if you've not started the quest as like a status flag here, it'll process this first priority rule, and this is like a conditional, like kind of event to that. And the next thing, this other flag here. And so basically, if you're at a certain flag, like I said, as a conditional event, it'll process or it'll serve you as the user talking to that NPC, the associated dialogue. And you can add rules and up those and, do whatever you need to do. All right, last, talking about the action hooks. Like I said, similar to the rules where it associates with NPCs, this associates with many kind of flags, and we'll have to show the examples and the capabilities from other just various examples we give you. But basically, if you do an object action, like I said, kill a specific NPC ID, kill a specific NPC spawn, like this is all within the capability here. It'll just be in the various documentation for like, for example, the operation set flag requires items true. Like these will just be something you have to look up the documentation and get familiar with. But to explain it here, basically this is the flag collected branch, right? And it's going to mark that flag as basically it's going to set that. That's the operation. Requires items true is a unique one-off to basically object actions. Because when you do object actions, you don't always get the basically the loot. If you're chopping a tree, you're not always successful in getting the log from it. You haven't chopped the tree exactly every time you swing. So in this case, simple. We have a flag for make sure you get the actual loot from that operation. So this is all nice. This is just a form. Like I said, this is all just data driven. So we actually have a piece of JSON that this is actually broken up to and sourced from. So this here, I'm going to do a quick scroll through, is the same thing we just went through, but in JSON view. Obviously, you can copy that to clipboard. You could feed that to an LLM, and you could say, give me off these examples, blah, blah, here's my script. Okay, showing the dialogue editor now. I'm going to go ahead and find Merlin's Apprentice. Now you're going to have a lot more dialogues in your quests, naturally. And most quests dialogues probably going to be linear, so it's going to be just a nice flow chart going down. But as you have dialogue branches, you'll see it start to branch horizontally more as a flow. Before I begin, I want to show you a couple of the controls here. We could change the color and alpha of things. Obviously, zoom around. We click to control, and so that gives us the actual configuration for each node. You could select the type. Right now, you have continue message, where you just hit next, next, next on the dialogue. Options, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of dialogue options for a user to feed them to different branches of your actual quests and your dialogues here. And then your text input, if you're asking them, hey, how much, how many coins, and then you type 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Subtext, it's like a small note below a chat on the window there, right? You've seen the subtext in other fields. Chat head, it'll show, just a local sprite of the entity's face next to the actual chat bubble, just so visually you can see which chat side is it coming, the player's response or the entity's response, or if it's a dialogue between multiple NPCs, you kind of see the chat head, right? We also have go to, that's just the operation for the node there. Normally, if you're working in the editor, it's going to auto increment, right? But, if you're going to dialogue branches or hand keying from the JSON, that is the intent, and you'll see that later. Uptext, that's if you want above the actual entity in the realm, to uptext like a player chat would normally do. And we'll show the rest there. I'm going to scroll through. Let's make this solid black so I can see this better. And like I said, we showed this, obviously dialogue options. That's just what it looks like for you to see there. Let's go ahead. We have a couple other views, story view, swim lanes, tree view, table view. Really, flow, tree, and table are probably the best views. Way you can see this, and that's depending on like how heavy, and you can kind of get a visual grasp of things here. And it really comes down to like how heavy, your dialogue branches are in a certain way. Helps you see that data there to render, and obviously same thing, you could edit from here, just the same. Import export from the JSON, feed that to an LLM, bring it back in, whatever you're up to. If you have, I had the wrong entity name, I need to change every instance, we have a find and replace, which will do that. It's obviously has a schema, it's JSON, so we have validation, it'll point out the validation issue for you if you have one. And adding steps, obviously from each view, you can do that. And the JSON view, once again. This is, if you were to look at this from JSON directly, you can do all you need to do with this. This is a very linear, you can see this has some branches here, but some of those, obviously, if you have a lot of dialogue, you'll get horizontal, and that's when stories, swim, those are their views come in play. You also have focus path. If a certain path, for example, I need to find a dialogue here that does, blocks off another. So like if you have a quest that, you force them into one gang or the other, you can kind of see that visually with focus path. Not on this quest, but obviously we have undo and whatever, save, boom, just updates the file locally. Not much else to show here unless I clicked through some other files and just showed that. Let's go ahead and wrap up. And like I said, there would be some more keys maybe if I went to some of these other quests, depending on the case, for more advanced cases, specific cases. But, there we go. Let's go to NPC registry here, finish off. So the NPC registry, as you saw originally on the quest editor, we had a UID. I assigned Merlin to UID 42. Be whatever you want. I also assign tags. It's optional. If I have multiple Merlins, like I said, you could put, hometown Merlin, Yggdrasil Merlin. It just doesn't matter how you do that. Or even multiple NPCs, they can all share cleric. And if it's a single entry in a tag, it'd match to that. So it doesn't have to be an exact match. The multiple is to... you can just read the instructions here. So anyways, for the items, same thing. We're just having an item ID, and this just labels quality of life. Like this does not change the actual entity's name. So I could say Merlin at his house. That's just a friendly label, whatever. What really matters is we're associating UID from the database here, or the tags, which there's the tag system to the MPC in the schema as well. So, once again, we have JSON view, import, export options, good to go there. So that is the view. This is just a couple of the editors. There will be more, obviously, for the actual items themselves, the bonuses, the entities, the sprites we'll use for per entity, the tags on the entities and conditions on entities. This is a view that's going to be built out, and we're going to see a lot more for this. So looking forward to it.